Hey y'all, we're going to do a video today talking about reloading some 250 grain hard cast bullets in 45 ACP. Before we get into that, you see a little tour around my loading bench. It's not cleaned up for this video, but just like to show some of the equipment that I use, some of the projects I've worked on over the years, everything from 338 Lapua down to probably 357 calibers that I load for. My Dillon 650, I use it for 9mm and pistol cartridges. RCBS rock chucker for most of my precision rifle reloading, and then the Lee Classic turret with the reverse turret that kicks the bullets into the feeder. I've customized a lot of equipment myself to make things easier for me, and that's something when you get into reloading, that's one of the fun things, make it where it works. Use what you want to use that makes it as easy for you as possible. Just got a few things on here, some pictures of some hunts years gone by. But here we'll begin the process. Like I said, I'm using my Lee Classic turret, and here I'm just loading some bullets. I experimented a little bit with overall cartridge length. From a lot of the information I found online pointed to about a 2.10 to a 2.15 COL. I did some initial testing before this video, and that would not chamber reliably for me. It would actually cause it not to go into battery, obviously, because the bullet was into the lands of the barrel. So after determining that, I settled on a COL length of 1.185, and had good function with that. Here you can see I'm placing a bullet on the ram, raising it up, and then crimping it. It's kind of halfway through the process, but I like to have the Lee factory crimp die on the wad of anything semi-auto I load. I like to use the Lee factory crimp die. I have had bullets set back into the case when not using this, so it's something I use on anything semi-auto or lever action for reloading. So here you can see the beginning of the process. I'm knocking the primer out and resizing the case, putting the primer on, seating the primer, going and expanding the case and taking the charge. Now, I'm measuring the charge into another scale just to ensure uniform accuracy, especially in load development. I want to make sure I'm getting everything right down to the exact amount. And I'll use a trickler to trickle back in what I need to do, but it's very important when you're working with precision, or in this case, bare defense rounds. I want them exactly the right amount of powder that's required. And here my goal is 6.2 grains. I'm not going to disclose the type of powder I'm using. I don't want someone to blow themselves up. This is what was safe in my gun. But 6.2 grains, and then you can see here I seat the bullet again, and then crimp the bullet in the factory crimp die. And then I'll check the bullet in a go, no-go gauge just to make sure it chambers easily. I want to do this in my precision loads as well, just to make sure I'm not having any issues. I'll check that cartridge overall length. That's a very important thing for those of you that are beginning reloaders. Always check that about every 10 rounds, just to make sure everything's the same. Here you can see I'm using the Acme high-tech coated 250 grain round nose flat point bullet. And again, I had some bear issues this year, and I'm going to carry this as a sidearm, especially when I'm crossbow hunting. I've got a 357, a Smith & Wesson that I like to carry as well, but it's just a little bit big. Now I'm carrying a Glock 30S, holds 10 rounds in the smaller magazines, 9+1, and I just like the portability that I have with that. Here you can see I'm trickling back in again to get exactly 6.2 grains. My Lee Classic measure is pretty accurate, but it can be plus or minus 0.2 of a grain. So that's why I want to ensure that everything is exactly right for function testing, speed testing, accuracy testing, to make sure that my round passes those tests for everything, especially with a bare defense round. I don't want to when I'm having to use it to defend my life or something similar. we can continue with this process here. I think I'm doing just maybe 10 rounds just for testing. When I'm doing different weight powders, I like to use a Sharpie pen and mark on the case the charge. That way I can keep the charges separate. And I look for pressure signs, not so much on 45, because if you see pressure signs on the 45, you're already too hot. But some of the rifle cartridges I load for the 6.8 SPC is one of the ones, wasn't a lot of information on it when I began to develop loads for it. So looking for case pressure signs was a very important part of what I did. Flattened primers, ejector marks, etc. And being able to have the load data or the charge labeled on the case really made it a lot easier for me to keep track of. And ended up getting some really nice shooting loads with that. But once I get this down, the process won't be nearly as involved. I'll run everything automatic through this Lee press, and the process will be greatly speeded up. But again, for testing purposes and just for accuracy, taking my time and going through all these steps. Once this is complete, we'll take a trip outside to the range and test for some of these factors. The best I could ever get on this Lee press, I could load probably about 250 bullets in an hour, 250 rounds of 9mm or whatever. And that's fantastic. It does great. On my Dillon 650, I got up to 700 rounds in an hour, which was phenomenal. There was a time I was shooting every day, shooting several rounds, working with some different pistols. A couple of SIG P365s I was working with, and I was shooting quite a bit, and then introducing my boys to shooting a handgun that took up quite a bit of ammunition. So I kind of laugh when friends come over to shoot. They'll bring a box of ammo or something. I said, guys, we're not even getting started unless you bring 3. So it's fun to throw lead. We've got some steel targets up the hollow above the house, and we do some pistol shooting up there, and then we have a 200-yard range out across the pasture, and just really have a good time shooting here at our property. There's a police shooting range on the other side of the mountain, so the neighbors don't usually complain too much, or they don't complain at all because they hear the police shooting quite often. Is one of the reasons I wanted to move here. So, all right, time to go to the range. Here we can see set up. We've been shooting some other calibers, getting ready for deer season today, but here's the first round, 807 feet per second. Did have a failure to feed. That is because I limp wristed the round. When I'm shooting for accuracy, I don't tend to hold my firearm as tight as I should. That's my fault, and it doesn't happen again as we go through the rest of this. I shot, I think, 15 rounds altogether. But you always got to hold that weapon like you mean business, especially with a high recoiling round like this. This is shooting out of an XDS 45 with a 3.3-inch barrel. I think my overall average is around 820 feet per second, which is smoking. So out of a 1911, you'd probably be up over 1,000 feet per second with a 250 grain hard cast. So it's pretty serious bear medicine. I believe this was my high, 834, and my low was around 805. So it's very consistent over my testing. It's also very accurate. You see I shot a baseball size group here, probably at, I guess 9 or 10 yards, just offhand, no rest. So I'm very confident in the fact that the round will go where I'm pointing it. Now, if the shooter can maintain his calm in the face of a charging bear, that's yet to be seen. Did have that incident, and I was able to shoot the bear with a 450 Bushmaster, but a little closer with a handgun is probably going to be a different story. But again, it's important to test for function, for velocity, which is consistency, and for accuracy.